Joining us now live with the Voice of America. They got new leadership at the Voice of America. I'm very happy about it. The left wing went berserk when they put in Brock and these other people and got rid of the Trump haters there. Longtime veteran of the John Fredericks Show, veteran of the Voice of America and CBS News, Eddie Yeranian, live in Cairo. Eddie, great to have you, man.
Thank you, John, as always.
You haven't been on in a while because obviously we're covering domestic politics here a lot. Tell us how you're doing.
I say on a personal level, I'm okay. I think we're having a heat wave that's killing the virus to a certain extent because the numbers are going down. I don't want to say that too loudly because I'll have people contradicting me on that, but that's what I think I see. We also see similar things in the neighboring countries in warmer climes in Sudan, South Sudan, in Libya. So I'd say that we have some good news with the weather killing off the virus, apparently. Other than that, politically, the Arab world is a mess. But in my 33 years in the Middle East, it's been a mess for most of those 33 years.
Let's get to Turkey and Erdogan and his now push into meddling into Jerusalem. You have to admit that the Turkish expansion, let's say influence in the region, is stunning since Erdogan has been there. And it seems to go forward, Edward, unabated. Now Erdogan of Turkey is an influencer in Israel. He's asserted himself as a negotiator in Jerusalem. What are his objectives, ultimately?
Well, I think he has several objectives depending on which part of the map you're looking at. In Libya, I think his objective is to get the rights to drill for gas in the sea, since Turkey lost its coastal waters when the Ottoman Empire disintegrated in 1923. And I think one of his other goals is just that, the Ottoman Empire. The anniversary of that disintegration of the Ottoman Empire is 1923, and it's going to be 2023 in 3 years. So I think one of his goals is to try to resurrect the Ottoman Empire. Of course, I don't think his former subjects or the Ottoman Empire's former subjects would like to see that happen, at least not most of them. Certainly not here in Egypt, not to the best of my knowledge in Syria or Iraq, where he's been meddling very heavily. But I think part of the problem, and this is the kind of stuff you come across maybe after 33 years as a correspondent in the Middle East, are things you really can't prove, but you know they're there because, for instance, you've got European countries, I believe, who are backing him. They don't say they are. They do it surreptitiously. They criticize him very lightly every now and then just to say we're not supporting him, but yet behind the scenes they're supporting him. And I won't name those countries because I can't prove it. But he definitely does work with them, and I think even our government under former President Bush gave him a pass because the Turkish army wanted to overthrow him at least 10, 15 years ago, and we didn't let him do it. And looking back on it, you have to ask yourself, why not? And I think there's a very easy answer to that, but I couldn't prove it, and I've got enough Muslim Brotherhood people on my tails already without trying to pick a fight with them now.
Oh, my goodness. Eddie Yeranian with us, the Voice of America, veteran CBS News reporter, also veteran of the John Fredericks Show, our man in the Middle East. Eddie, good to have you with us. Eddie, live in Cairo. The Wall Street Journal report in June said the Trump administration has been very irritated with Qatari flyover fees paid to Iran. This is Qatar Airlines, that because of the blockade, they have to pay all this money to Iran in order to fly around the blockade. This as a result of a 3-year ongoing blockade that the Gang of Four basically put on Qatar. And their foreign minister, Sheikh Mohammed bin Al-Thani, confirmed that there is indeed a new initiative being taken seriously. He tweeted a few days ago that Qatar is open to negotiation, which he hopes will produce results. But we haven't seen any results, and it looks like the Trump administration is now increasingly irritated with the fact that Qatar Airlines is paying around all this money when the original objective of the blockade was, they were saying, Qatar was too close to Iran and had too many trade deals with Tehran. Now they have to pay them money in order to fly into their country because they can't fly through the blockade. I mean, how does this make any sense?
Well, a lot of it is feudal, the kind of quarrels that go back decades. These families that are in power in many of these Gulf states are at each other's throats and have been for decades. I mean, I think that goes without saying, at least between Bahrain and Qatar. I think those two families have been quarreling for a long, long time. The United Arab Emirates, well, it's a mixture of various sheikdoms, so I don't know necessarily that their quarrels go back that far, but it's political to a large degree because they support different players in the Middle East, and their different players have been quarreling among themselves, so it gets back to them. And also Saudi Arabia. I mean, Saudi Arabia has been a little bit unstable because King Salman is old and he probably won't be living that much longer. So it's a feudal dynastic succession. And I think the two young leaders, the crown prince of Saudi Arabia and the emir of Qatar are about the same age, and I don't think they get along very well. So it's might be just a little bit of that.
Well, look, I think the Trump administration thinks that U.S. pressure on MBS is somehow going to get this blockade lifted. But what's really irritating them is the fact that Mayor Qatar, which is very successful, is paying Iran all this money, and that is counter to the Trump administration's, let's call it, maximum pressure campaign to bring Iran to its knees. So I don't know how this is ever going to get resolved. Seems like Qatar's basically worked around it, presents humanitarian issues. You can't fly in, you can't get in and out of each country. So a lot of students were left hanging, families are split up and things of that nature. But economically, you look at Qatar's GDP before the coronavirus, it actually went up. So I'm not sure it had any impact on them. In order for this to get lifted, somebody's going to have to save face. And you know how the Arab world is, right? It's all about saving face. I just don't see any plans in place where this embargo is going to end anytime soon, because the only way it is with everybody claiming victory, right?
Well, I mean, Qatar is sandwiched between Saudi Arabia and Iran, and it has to have ties with both countries one way or the other, right, whether you like either of your neighbors. So, I mean, that's part of the equation, and sometimes you can't square the circle by having good relations with everybody. So, I mean, in a way, they're in a bad position.
Well, we'll see that. Let's get to the, I don't know if you can comment on this, but you should be able to a certain extent, the change in leadership at the entire Voice of America operation in the U.S. I know that I, for one, had been complaining for some time that the executives that were in charge of VOA, Eddie, as you know, were very anti-Trump. I mean, the purpose of the Voice of America, whether it be Asia, Europe, Middle East, around the globe, is to give an honest voice of freedom and liberty to people. And what VOA had become under Obama holdovers is an anti-Trump international megaphone. I mean, every time I tuned them in for anything, they said it was always anti-Trump, negative Trump. I don't think that's the purpose of VOA. I'm glad that after many of us complained to the administration bitterly, and I'm talking about bitter complaints for years, 3 years, finally the Trump administration cleaned house in there. Has that affected any of the ground people at all, like yourself?
I think it's slowed down some of the bureaucratic processing, and that we've been putting out less material, but it hasn't stopped the operation, and I don't think it's really hindered any of the main news gathering operations of VOA. As far as what the goals of the new leadership are going to be, I mean, I can only look forward to them, because as we've done before in the past, we've criticized some of what we saw going on at VOA. But I would say this, taking the situation to the rest of the bureaucracy, I think it's a shame that Trump cannot assert his authority over other parts of the bureaucracy, which are doing the opposite of his policies. Now, of course, I shouldn't be saying that to a certain extent because it's not my position to defend the president's policies. But then again, you don't want a bureaucracy that's doing the opposite of what the president is saying they should be doing. And you see that over and over again out here in the Middle East, where they do exactly the opposite of what the president says. You see it. His foreign policy people, I don't want to say Pompeo, I don't think he's doing that, but his former Secretary of State, Rex, what's his name? I'm forgetting his name, who used to work for ExxonMobil.
Right.
You could see him doing the opposite of what the president was saying.
Rex Tillerson.
Yes, Rex Tillerson. And a lot of other people, too. Many of them are gone, but still people encrusted in the bureaucracy. You still see Muslim Brotherhood people in the bureaucracy that are holdovers from former President Obama. They should have been gone. We don't want them in there. And I don't know. What else can I say? I think it takes a while to get rid of the holdovers that are doing the opposite of your policies, unfortunately.
Well, Edward, listen, you have been a stalwart there, the voice of freedom. And look, I don't care if it's a Trump administration, Clinton or Biden. The purpose of the Voice of America is not to take political positions one way or the other against whatever the administration is. I would expect that if Joe Biden were to win, that the VOA would not be a pro-Joe Biden mouthpiece, as it should be a pro-Trump mouthpiece. It should be talking about liberty and freedom and American values. That's the objective of it, and to report the news and events in an unfettered, honest way. That was not happening under the previous regime. I'm glad they cleaned house. I got a roll. Edward Yeranian live in Cairo, our man in the Middle East, been with us for 10 years. Ed, thanks for being with us.